Hi, this is Annie from the ADHD Minimalist, and today I'm here without any makeup on and in my paint clothes. You can see my pants are all full of paint. And I'm going to show you how to make egg paint or egg tempra, or in Swedish, egg tempra, how to mix your own paint. If you'd like to have a written guide for how to make egg paint, then you can go into my blog, the ADHDminimalist.com. So if you bought your paint, this is paint powder. If you bought it in Sweden, some of the companies that sell it tell you on the package exactly how to mix it. It says 500 grams water, 190 grams egg, 190 grams linoil or linseed oil. Your eggs, and here is what I did yesterday. I put one of these bags. This is actually a color you can paint with it. It's sort of a gray beige color, but it's also the first layer that kind of helps the other layers of paint stick on better. So not all companies recommend that you have this first layer of paint. It's made out of a special kind of clay, so it sticks really well to even surfaces that are kind of shiny and that you normally would sand. Like for instance, the legs of this table, these are painted with that. They're starting to get a bit dirty, but this was really, really shiny. It had some kind of varnish on it. And I mean, this has been painted for quite a long time, so the kids have been nicked it up and stuff, but it's not chipping off paint on the really slick surface that I painted. So it has a wonderful function that it just sticks on everything. So first what you do is you put the powder into water. Okay, yesterday I measured 500 grams of water on a scale. This is just a kitchen scale. It just happens to be an extra big one, but a regular one will do fine. It has a memory function, which is helpful. If you don't have a memory function, go in and read my blog post because I tell you how to do it without that function. This is just in case you take too much time, and that happens in the beginning, that you stop and think or stop and read instructions, and then your weight disappears. Once you've done this several times, then you don't necessarily need that memory function, but it's really helpful. I have a blog post about how to make organic egg paint, and this is a pretty in-depth guide, a helpful illustrated guide for making organic egg paint. If you Google the ADHDminimalist.com and then look for this little search magnifying glass, and then you can type in egg paint, then what will come up is this, a helpful illustrated guide for making organic egg paint. And I go into a lot of detail there, both if you have the package with the instructions on it, and if you don't have instructions and you just have pigment and you want to know how to make it totally from scratch. Then we have a blog post about the most common questions about egg paint. Some of these were questions I wish I had answers to before I started painting at our house. So I took 500 grams of water and I mixed it with this bag of pigment yesterday. And this is what it looks like. And then it has to sit for at least an hour. They say the best results are after 12 hours. So this has been sitting for 2 days actually. And it can sit in water for months. I honestly used some paint the other day that was sitting in water for 2 years, and you just have to mix it a little bit longer before you start adding the eggs and the oil, but it works just fine. So I am going to mix this up a little bit, and then I'm going to start adding more things to it. So you can use, if you don't have a really deep bucket to keep it from splashing, you can use plastic wrap to wrap around your mixer to keep it from splattering everywhere. I recently just bought this. It's actually a thing for the kitchen, but it works really well to make paint. Okay, sometimes despite my best efforts to keep the kitchen clean, I spill. This dropped from the mixer because it was the second time I've used it. Honestly, this stuff will clean up pretty good as long as you do it right away. If you let it sit, then sometimes it's impossible to get it off if you let it sit for a couple hours. But look at that. See, it just completely disappeared from the floor. So if you spill something, just make sure you take care of it right away. And this is egg and oil, and it's like a mayonnaise. If you want it to get even thicker, what you can do is to first measure your eggs and then separately measure the oil. And you can drop the oil into the eggs as you mix, like you would do if you actually made mayonnaise that you're going to eat. And that usually makes it a bit thicker than if you do it this way, where you put it both in the same container and then mix. But I find that usually doesn't make a huge difference in the paint. If you want to be really picky and separate it and make more like a real thick mayonnaise, then you can try that. Let me know if you think that makes a better result when you paint. I haven't noticed a huge difference yet. The cord on this thing isn't very long, but I'm just gonna mix this. And I probably need to mix for a couple minutes, so I'm gonna turn this off. Now I'm going to pour this into the paint, pigment, and water mixture and mix for about 2 minutes. This is the paint. It's gonna look a little bit bubbly like this right away. Eventually a lot of those bubbles will pop after it sits for a little while. And I'm gonna show you how I use this. Okay, here are some different brushes. And this is a synthetic brush. It has synthetic bristles. They're plastic or something similar. You don't want to use these brushes with egg paint. You want to have a brush that has natural fibers. This one is a rather expensive brush that I've been trying to wash out all the time, but I forgot it overnight in a plastic bag. And this is what happened. All the bristles get frayed out. I can show you how to wash your paintbrushes so that you don't ever have this problem, but you do need to take care of them right away. This is one that I've had for a long time, and I've been really careful about washing it. So you see that the bristles still look really nice. It does have a little bit of dark blue flecks because I used it to paint something dark blue, but the point is that you can still paint with this and it'll look really nice because the bristles are all sticking straight up. Again, this is an expensive brush. This maybe costs like $25, and it does not lose bristles while you're painting. This is also one of those really expensive brushes that it won't be losing bristles. This one is also natural fibers, but it's a much cheaper brush. So I've used some of these, but they do shed. I was painting a door and I maybe lost 10 to 15 of these hairs. And that's not very fun when you're painting. So if you're gonna invest in a really good brush, then it's advantageous to learn how to take care of it properly so it doesn't look like this. Okay, so when you dip your brush in the paint, you just want to dip the very end. Because remember I showed you that the bristles were sticking out on this brush. You kind of see it from here. The problem is that what happens is the paint dries here in the bottom and then it pushes the bristles out. So if you try to keep the paint at the end of the brush, you'll have less of a problem with that when you try to clean it later. So then I have just a little bitty board here. I'm gonna try to, usually you go like with the grain of the wood. It's a little bit hard here when the, the board is so little. But, oh, and there's hair in there. Let's see here. So, well, we're just going to let this dry for now. We can look at that later. And I'm going to show you how to wash a brush. Oh, wrong way again. Okay. Okay, one last thing about the paint is, here I have a bucket of paint. It has to go in the fridge. So as soon as you've mixed it, the water and the pigment don't need to go in the fridge, but as soon as you've put eggs and oil in it, it has to stay in the fridge. It'll hold for, I don't know, about a week. Sometimes I've used it for up to 2 weeks after I mixed it and it was in the fridge. But 2 weeks is about the end of it. It'll start smelling like rotting eggs if you keep it any longer than that. So if your paint starts to smell bad, then it's gone bad and you probably shouldn't use it anymore.